And we're back, people. Um, I'm going to be doing this over the next few weeks, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I know there have been many iterations of this story. The James Nesbitt one springs to mind, and the Michael Caine one, which they made in the early 90s. Um, yeah, so here we go. I'm going to be reading this over the next few weeks, so don't forget to tune in each week. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as big as the last Sherlock Holmes one, but it's still quite enjoyable. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Mr. Utterson the lawyer was a man of a rugged countenance that was never lightened by a smile, cold and scanty, embarrassed in discourse, backward in sentiment, lean, long, dusty and dreary, and yet somehow lovable. At friendly meetings, and when the wine was to his taste, something eminently human beckoned from his eye, something indeed which never found its way into his talk, but which spoke not only in those silent symbols of the after dinner face, but more often and loudly in the acts of his life. He was astute with himself, drank gin when he was alone, to mortify a taste for vintages, and though he enjoyed the theatre, had not crossed the doors for one for 20 years, but had an approved tolerance for others, sometimes wondering, almost with envy, at the high pressure of spirits involved in their misdeeds, and extremely inclined to help rather than to reprove. I incline to Caine's heresy, he used to say, quantitatively. I let my brother go to the devil in his own way. In this character, it was frequently his fortune to be the last reputable acquaintance and the good influence in the lives of down-going men, and to such as these, so long as they came about his chambers, he never marked a shadow of change in his demeanour. No doubt the feat was easy to Mr. Utterson, for he was undemonstrative at the best, and even his friendship seemed to be founded in similar catholicity of good nature. It is the mark of a modest man to accept friendly circle, ready-made from the hands of opportunity, and that was the lawyer's way. His friends were those of his own blood, or those whom he had known the longest. His affections, like ivy, were the growth of time. They implied no aptness in the object. Hence, no doubt, the bond was united him. No doubt the bond was united him to Mr. Richard Enfield, his distant kinsman, the well-known man about town. It was a nut to crack for many. What these two could see in each other, or what subject they could find in common. It was reported by those who encountered them in their Sunday walks, and that they said nothing, looked singularly dull, and would hail with obvious relief the appearance of a friend. For all that, the two men put their greatest store by these excursions, counted them the chief jewel of each week, and not only set aside occasion of pleasure, but even resisted the calls of business, that they might enjoy them uninterrupted. It chanced on one of those rambles that their way led them down a by-street in the busy quarter of London. The street was small and what is called quiet, but it drove a thriving trade on the weekdays. The inhabitants were all doing well, it seemed, and all emulously hoping to do better still, and laying out the surplus of their grains in the quarry, so that the shop fronts stood alongside the thoroughfare with an air of invitation, like Rose, smiling saleswoman. Even on Sunday, when it was veiled, its even more florid charms, and lay comparatively empty of passage. The street shore, out in the contrast to its dingy neighbourhood, like a fire in a forest, and with freshly painted shutters, well polished brasses, and general cleanliness and gaily of note, instantly caught and pleased the eye of the passenger. Two doors from one corner on the left hand going east, the line was broken by the entry of a court, and just at that point a certain sinister block of buildings thrust forward, its gable on the street. It was 2 stories high, showered no window, nothing but a door, on the lower story of the blind forehead of discoloured wall on the upper, and bore in every feature that marks the prolonged and sordid negligence. The door was equipped, and neither bell nor knocker was blistered and disdained. Tramps slouched into the recess and struck marches on the panels. Children kept shop upon the steps, and the schoolboy had tried his knife on the mouldings. And for close on generation, no one had appeared to drive away those random visitors on to repair their ravages. Mr. Enfield and the lawyer came. Mr. Enfield and the lawyer were on the other side of the by street. But when they came abreast of the inn entry, the former lifted up his cane and pointed. "Did you even mark the door?" he asked. And when his companion had replied in the affirmative, it is connected in my mind, added he. "Very odd story." "Indeed," said Mr. Addison, with a slight change of voice. "And what was that?" Well, it was this way," returned Mr. Enfield. "I was coming home from some place at the end of the world about 3 o'clock of a black winter morning, and my way lay through a part of town where there was literally nothing to be seen but lamps, street after street, and all the folks asleep, street after street, all lighted up as if for a procession, and full as empty as a church, till at last I got into that state of mind when a man listens and listens, and begins to long for the sight of a policeman. All at once I saw 2 figures, one little man who was slumping along eastward at the good walk, and the other a girl of maybe 8 or 10, who was running as hard as she was able to down the cross street. Well, sir, the two ran into one another, naturally enough, at the corner. And then came the horrible part of the thing, for the man trampled calmly over the child's body and left her screaming on the ground. It sounds nothing to bear, but it was hellish to see. It was like a man. It was like some damaged juggernaut. I gave a few halloos, took to my heels and collared my gentleman, and brought him back there, where was already quite a group about the screaming child. He was perfectly cool and made no resistance, but gave me one look so ugly that it brought out the sweat on me like running. These people had turned out where the girl owns family, and pretty soon the doctor for whom she had been sent put in appearance. Well, the child was not much the worse, more frightened, according to the sawbones, and that, you might have supposed, would have been the end to it. But there was one curious circumstance I had taken to loathing to my gentleman at first sight. So had the child's family, which was only natural. But the doctor's case was what struck me. He was unusual cut and dry, apothecary of no particular age and colour, and a strong Edinburgh accent, and about as emotional as a bagpipe. Well, sir, he was like the rest rest of us. Every time he looked at my prisoner, I saw that Sawbones turned sick and white with desire to kill him. I knew that was in his mind, but just as he knew that was in mine, and killing being out of the question, and we did what we did the next best. We told the man we could and make such a scandal out of this as should make his name stink from one end of London to the other. If he had any friends or any credit, we undertook we undertook that he should lose them. And all that time, as we were pitching it in red hot, we were keeping the woman off him as best as we could, for they were as wild as harpies. I never saw a circle of such hateful faces. And there was the man in the middle, which a kind of black sneering coolness, frightened too. I could see that by carrying it off, sir, really like Satan. If you could choose to make capital out of this accident, said he, I am naturally helpless. No gentleman but wishes to avoid a scene, says he. Name your figure. Well, we screwed him up to £100 for the child's family. He would have clearly liked to stick it out, but there was something about the lot of us that meant mischief, and at last he struck. The next thing was to get the money, and where do you think he was? Struck. The last thing was to get the money. Where do you think he carried us? But to that place with the door. Whipped out a key, went in, and presently came back with a matter of £10 in gold and a cheque for the balance of counts drawn, payable to bearer, and signed with a name that I can't mention, though it's one of the points of my story. But it was the name, at least, very well known and often printed. The figure was stiff, but the signature was good for more than if it was only genuine. I took the liberty of pointing out to my gentleman that the whole business looked apocryphal, and that a man does not in real life walk into a cellar door at 4 in the morning and come out with another man's cheque for close upon £100. But he was quite easy and sneering. Set your mind at rest, he said. I will stay with you till the bank's open and cash the cheque myself. So we all set off, the doctor and the child's father and our friend and myself, and passed the rest of the night in my chambers. The next day, when we had breakfast, went in a body to the bank. I gave in the cheque myself and said, I have every reason to believe it was a forgery. Not a bit of it. The cheque was genuine. Tut tut, said Mr. Utterson. I see you feel as I do, said Mr. Enfield. Yes, it's a bad story, for my man was a fellow that nobody could have to do with, a really damnable man, and the person that drew the cheque is the very pink of the properties, celebrated too, and what makes it worse, one of your fellows who do what they call good blackmail. I suppose an honest man paying through the nose for some of the capers of his youth. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, part one of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I shall continue reading it next week. I'm sorry if I seemed a little bit, I haven't read this before, and so this is new to me as well. So, yeah. I'm sorry if I haven't seemed a little bit with it today. As I say, it's been a long time since I've made these videos, and it's going to take me a little while to get back into making these videos, and yeah. But I hope you will bear with me, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I shall read part 2 next week. As for now, that's it for today. I'm back next week next Friday. The reason I'm doing these on Friday is because I'm working over the weekend. So, yeah. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye for now.